Well, the flowers are blooming and the birds are chirping, and it is a homeschool mom's favorite time of the year. That's right, it's curriculum shopping season. Today, I'm going to take you through our curriculum choices for my rising 10th grader for the 2023-2024 school year. Hey there, friends, and welcome back to My Practically Imperfect Life. If you're joining me for the first time, welcome to my channel. My name's Abby, and I homeschool my 2 teenage children and have been for many years now. And I am just bringing you along for our homeschooling through high school journey. I also like to talk about things related to mom life and home and garden and pretty much anything that I think you guys might find interesting along the way. But today I know you're here to see our curriculum choices for my son, who is going to be a rising 10th grader next school year. Part of the reason why I'm sharing this so early is that I've already made all my curriculum choices. I do a lot of research through the winter months. I kind of evaluate where we are at with our current curriculum, what's working, what's not working, where do I think we need to make changes in the upcoming year, and then I scour online for the best deals I can find on those different curriculum choices that I've made. So I'd like to get this information out to you early so you can definitely do your own research before you buy anything. I highly recommend checking out Kathy Duffy Reviews. It provides really impartial reviews of hundreds of different curriculum options for all different ages and all different subjects. And then once you've made your choices, this will give you a chance to keep an eye out for different websites like Rainbow Resource or Christian Book or even specific publishers and watch for the deals that they have. And there are so many during the spring and summer months that you won't want to miss. So a couple of notes before I dive in. If you've watched any of my previous curriculum videos, you might notice that my kids are only 1 year apart, and yet I make different curriculum choices on specific subjects for the 2 of them. And that's because my kids are very different students. They have different strengths, different weaknesses, different interests. And that's part of the beauty of homeschooling, is that I can really customize our curriculum choices for each student instead of trying to fit them into like a particular box. I mean, that's what public school does, right? Everyone's got to learn the same thing regardless of where their strengths or weaknesses lie. And in homeschool, we really have the ability to tailor things and customize them to our own children. And so I do that with our curriculum choices for both of my kids. Again, even though they're only a year apart. So you might notice differences from year to year for both of my students. The second thing is that my son, even though he's going into 10th grade, may or may not be on the same level as your student of the same age in every subject. He did some courses in 8th grade that we did count as high school credit, but most of those were in electives, things like health and personal finance and logic, and not so much in all of the core courses, which my daughter had done. And that was, again, just based on where he was at in his learning at that particular age. So on some subjects, you might find that I have him in a higher level than you might have your student in. And in other subjects, he might be a year below where your students are. And again, beauty of customizing our homeschool curriculum choices. I can tailor it to my student, meet him where he's at, and then pick the best things to help him succeed in those subjects. The other thing I want to make note of is that the courses I'm going to go over today are the ones that I term individual subjects. That is, courses that my son is doing separately from his sister. We used to do morning time when my kids were younger, and that kind of evolved into us doing certain high school elective courses together as a family. And I have a separate video coming out later this week that will cover the electives that I'm doing with both of them together. And the last thing is, for each course, I will let you know how many credits I am assigning for that course and what I will term it on the transcript. First up for science, my son will be doing Discovering Design with Chemistry. This is from Berean Builders and written by Dr. Jay Wiley. I am a huge fan of Dr. Wiley and his method for creating textbooks. He is very conversational in how he writes things. He includes lots of real life examples, and he explains principles and concepts in a very easy to follow way. Chemistry can be extremely confusing for someone who is taking the course for the first time. There is a lot of terminology to learn. There is a ton of math. And if your student hasn't taken algebra before doing chemistry, I would highly recommend waiting on chemistry until they have finished at least Algebra 1. It will really help them be able to tackle the different math problems in chemistry far easier, and it'll lead to far less frustration for them as the student and you as the parent. And I say this as somebody who majored in chemistry in college. I also really like how thorough this program is. We're actually wrapping it up with my daughter now, so it covers all of the different basics that you need to know for chemistry. Along with the textbook, we also will be utilizing the student workbook. And just to show you what this does, the student workbook has what they call on your own questions, and these are assigned to go along with different sections of the reading. So the book does give you an example of how to kind of break up your lessons over the course of the year, and then you'll do the on your own assignments to go with the reading. Sometimes it's simply writing in definitions on things that you need to learn. Sometimes it's filling out problems and explaining concepts. Other times they are math problems. There are balancing equation problems, all different kinds of things that your student can do, and they can fill it out right here in the notebook. It also has chapter reviews. So at the end of each chapter, there's a whole series of questions that kind of bring it all together. And the chapter review questions very closely match the type of questions that will be seen on the test. So we did buy the test booklet as well. And then an invaluable part of this packet is the answer key. Not only does it have the answers to the test, but it also has the answers to your chapter reviews. Not just an answer, but an actual detailed explanation of how you get to that answer. So as you're working through, especially like the math heavy problems, you can really guide your student on how it is they're supposed to get to those solutions. So we have utilized this a ton this year with my daughter, and I know I will use it again a lot with my son next year. Now there are labs included in the different modules, and I wouldn't skimp on doing the labs. They are so much fun. They bring the concepts to life, and I know my daughter just loved doing the labs. There are a lot of times where she'd be doing one and she'd go, oh, because it worked exactly the way it was supposed to, and it just totally surprised her, the reactions that she got to see. Now, we got a kit from Home Science Tools. They have kits that are designed to go with specific curriculum. So you can go in, you can search by Berean builders and then by chemistry, and you can get a kit that has most of the supplies that you need to do all of the labs. There's usually like a few things around the house that you have to kind of gather, but they're basic things that we all have. But it is nice to have things like the Bunsen burner and all of the different test tubes and granulated cylinders and beakers and things like that you have to have, along with the chemicals and the materials that you need to do some of the reactions. Now, we purchased it at the beginning of this year for my daughter to use, and in fact, we've used so little of some of like the chemicals and things like that I don't think we're going to need to repurchase a new kit for my son. Things that were disposable, like balloons and styrofoam cups and things like that, I will need to replace, but the bulk of it I'm able to use again. So if you have students that are coming up to do this course later, just know that buying the kit once may very well be enough for you to do it multiple times with different students. And on his transcript, this will be a 1 credit full year course. It'll be listed as chemistry. For math, I don't have anything physical to show you because we're using an online course again from Shorman Math. My son started using Shorman Math this past year and has really enjoyed it. It's been very helpful for him. We were introduced to Dr. Shorman when we used his Dive DVD tutorials that went along with Saxon math programs. And we didn't want to go away from the Saxon method of learning, which includes like bite-sized bits of information being introduced each day, and then lots of continual review of past learned concepts to ensure mastery. We really liked how Saxon taught math, but we wanted to move to something that was more online, auto-graded, included the tutorial videos, and just had some additional features, and that's where Shorman Math came in. So he completed the first year of Shorman Math this year. For his sophomore year, he's going to be taking Algebra 2 with integrated geometry. So yes, it does include geometry along the way instead of him having to do a separate geometry course. In fact, my daughter's a little bummed that I made this decision for her brother because she had to do a full year of geometry. Sorry. So that means he's going to get more than 1 math credit this year. Now, his first algebra course was Algebra 1 with integrated geometry. So between the 2 courses, he'll have an Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry course credits. Anyways, the way this program works is that your student does have a login. They get onto the website, and there is an e-textbook on there with things for them to read, and then there is a video lesson. There are 100 daily lessons, so they watch the video, and then they are given a homework assignment, and those vary in length from day to day. They do the assignments on scrap paper, and then they enter in their answer right there on the website. And then as soon as they submit that answer, it tells them if they're right or if they're wrong. If they're wrong, it will give them information on where to go back in the lesson to review that concept or figure out where they went wrong in the problem. And then if they get it right on the next try, they can get partial credit for that problem. Once they submit the assignment each day, I'm sent an email letting me know that it's been submitted, and I can go right online and I can see how they did in the grade book. So 100 daily lessons with videos, then there's a weekly quiz, and then quarterly exams. And again, the best part is that this is all auto-graded. I don't have to grade any more math by hand, and that's a good thing. Other key benefits of this program is the ability to actually email Dr. Shorman if you get really stuck on something. Yes, you can email him and he will reply back and help your student out. Another really cool feature is that he gets access to a review course. So this is a CLEP review course. It takes about 3 to 6 additional weeks if we choose to use it. And it reviews the concepts for algebra, for college algebra, that would be on the CLEP exam, and that would prepare him to be able to take that for additional college credit. So this is a full year course, so he'll get 1 full credit in Algebra 2 on his transcript, and then he's going to have a half credit for geometry. And I'll probably put that on the spring semester, just like I did on his transcript for this year, since he got a half geometry credit for the Algebra 1 course as well. So for English, I do pull together multiple different sources in order to kind of create my own English course that covers all of the basics that I feel it needs to. The first part is vocabulary, and this year we are again going to be using Wordly Wise. So this is level 10. My kids actually both requested that we keep this for vocabulary. They quite enjoyed the switch to it this year. So Wordly Wise, it has the student book. So this is the student workbook, and then I have the teacher answer key, and then I have the test and quiz packet as well. So we do utilize all of those pieces to it. Each lesson in Wordly Wise is set up pretty much the same. You get the introduction to the words with their definitions, and then there are lessons or activities A, B, C, D, and E, and a vocabulary extension activity for each lesson. So the way we do it is we just do 1 activity a day. So he would do like lesson 4 part A one day and lesson 4 part B the next day, and just keep going on through it. And then as the quizzes and tests kind of come up in the schedule, he'll take those as well. So we utilize this for vocabulary. You'll notice that in some of the other things I'm going to show you is that they do have vocabulary components, and we just skip those in that other curriculum because we are utilizing this solely for our vocabulary. For grammar, he is again using Fix-It Grammar from IEW. This is book 6, the final book in their Fix-It Grammar series, and it is The Little Mermaid. If you are unfamiliar with Fix-It Grammar, it is a really great program that's designed to teach grammar in about 10 to 15 minutes a day. At the start of each week, you have some what we call like Learn It pages. So there is a lesson in there for them to read, and it'll introduce the grammar concept for that week. So for example, week 13, we're talking about noun and pronoun function review and how you use them. What are action verbs, linking verbs, helping verbs? What's a predicate noun? What's a noun of direct address? Like, what are all of those things? There's usually a little activity in there for them to kind of practice that concept, filling out some examples, and that is on your first day. And then there are sentences for them to look at and basically edit for each day. So for each day, it's going to have a sentence or a couple of sentences from the book, The Little Mermaid, and then it's going to tell them up above what things they need to mark or fix down below. So he marks up the sentences here, shows that to me so I can see that he has found everything he needed to find, and then he rewrites the sentence in his best handwriting down below. This is actually a great way to continue having him write in cursive. We did cursive handwriting, we taught it through elementary and middle school, and I like them to at least use it every once in a while. So good way to include that in high school. Now, out of all of the things that kind of compose an English course, writing is definitely the area where my son has always struggled the most. I think a lot of it is that he's very much like me in that I kind of am a speed reader. When I look through things, I tend to skip over a lot of words as I'm reading so I can just get the main idea. And that does make it hard to kind of slow down and produce good writing because your thoughts just come out so fast and you just have a hard time organizing them on paper. And so we are continuing with the IEW writing programs. Now, IEW has a lot of different options for writing programs, and if you've never used any of their programs before and you are interested in starting it for your student, I would really recommend looking at their structure and style full year courses. IEW has a very unique way of teaching writing, and the structure and style courses kind of teach that methodology to your students. They have video lessons, really detailed guides, lots of activities to just help them get a feel for how it is that IEW works and learning some great writing tools along the way. And they have a version for elementary, middle school, and high school. So depending on whenever you're introducing your student to IEW. But once you get through structure and style, they have what are called theme-based writing courses, and they are recommended for all different age groups. So he is doing Bible-based writing lessons this year. And if you look on their website, you'll actually see that this is recommended for middle school or high school. I didn't want to go with a super challenging writing program for him because, again, this is one of those areas where I know he struggles. And so I want to continue building better writing skills with him before like throwing something that I'm like, oh, well, you're in high school, you should be doing this really hard writing program. I'd rather make sure that he's really solid on his basic writing. My son is not going to be a novelist, and he's, not going to be a newspaper editor or anything like that. Those are not career goals for him. I just want him to be able to write well and get his thoughts across well. So we chose this one for this year. Now, the way that these guys work is that they do have like a weekly lesson, and it usually starts by giving some sort of a reading assignment. So just a random page in here, like lesson 13 says, during lessons 13 through 15, a student might read the book Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. So it gives recommended reading that goes along with that theme-based writing program. Like last year we did one of the Narnia ones, so he actually read through all of the Narnia books and then had assignments that dealt with that. So this is going to have lots of different options for reading assignments that he usually will do on the first day of the week, whether it's a few chapters from a book, passages from the Bible, and things like that. So he goes through that, and then there are a couple of pages for the lessons that kind of explain what it is that they're doing that week, what's the key focus. There are what they call keyword outlines, and this is the teacher guide, so it's going to look a little different. But just for example, they give these example keyword outlines. This is something that IEW teaches for helping your students kind of put their thoughts down and get things organized and understand the most important information to then share in their writing assignment. And then from that, they will have an assignment, whether that's 1 paragraph, 3 paragraphs, 5 paragraphs. Sometimes it's a multi-week project where they're putting things together and then adding introductions and conclusions. So it's different, from week to week. My favorite part is the checklist here, and I'll see if I can get this. The checklist tells your students exactly what is expected to be included in their paper. This is great for them because as they write, they can sit there and it tells them how to mark it on their paper. So if they're using, for example, alliteration, it'll tell them what to write above the spot in their paper where they're doing alliteration. They do this on the rough draft. It helps them identify all of those writing concepts, make sure that they're not missing anything in their writing. What do I need to go back and add in? And then I take a look at it, mark anything that I see that obviously needs edited, hand it back, and then he types up a final version. So for the literature component, he is using elements of literature from BJU. So the way that the BJU curriculum works is that it does divide the textbook up into sections. Now, previously we'd only had 6 sections. This book does have 8, each one including short stories, poems, or works of literature that kind of fit with a particular like literary device that they want to teach. So it might be drama, irony, sound and syntax, allusion, and every story in that section is going to help kind of highlight that particular thing they're focusing on. So in addition to the student textbook, I do also have the teacher books. It's a 2-part teacher book. And I do recommend getting these if you're going to do the program. The teacher guides have so much extra information in them. This helps you with working with your student if they're struggling to identify things in the stories. If you want to use their sections that they call thinking zones or like the after story questions, it provides you with answers for all of those. So it's just a very helpful tool. It also has a good old-fashioned CD on it. My computer doesn't even have a CD reader anymore. I had to buy one to plug into it. But on the CD, you can print out worksheets, which they call teacher helpers, that they can do along with the reading assignments. So we utilize those. We always have. I just print them all out, put them in a binder. There's also quizzes that go along with the different stories, just kind of a short 5-question, like a reading comprehension quiz, like, hey, prove to me you read it kind of deal. Then there is a test packet. So there is a test for each of the different units, and then there's a midterm and a final exam, and then the answer keys as well. So I have those. So those are kind of the pieces that I use. Now, something that I do want to mention, though, at the beginning of the BJU teacher guide, you have the scope and sequence. So it's several pages long there. You'll notice that it has it set up to go for 180 days. but we do take a lot out of this. For example, anytime it has a writing assignment, I just eliminate that because we're using the IEW writing program. And then there will be times when it'll say use 3 days to do this one assignment. And I'll look at the assignment and say, well, that doesn't need 3 days. You know, it's a shorter reading assignment, maybe one worksheet. And I'm like, well, there's no reason to spend 3 days on that. So as I go through and I enter this in my lesson plan book, I can actually cut out quite a few days from the way that they have it set up. And that allows me to bring in novel studies. I have always wanted to include additional novels for my kids on top of just what's in a textbook. I think reading a book cover to cover, learning to answer questions about it, writing a paper about it, or doing a project related to it is important. So he will do 3 novel studies in addition to what he's doing here. Basically, we'll do 2 or 3 of the units, then a novel study, then another 2 or 3 units, then a novel study, and then end the school year with a novel study as well. For my novel studies, I tend to just try to find materials usually through like Teacher Pay Teachers. I'm not looking for anything crazy, just some reading comprehension questions. And then I usually choose a topic that I want their project or a paper to be about. For his novels this year, we're going to start with The Fellowship of the Ring. He did The Hobbit this year, enjoyed it a lot more than he expected. And so I felt naturally we could move on to The Fellowship of the Ring. So that will be the first of the books that he is going to do. Anyways, on his transcript, this will be a 1 credit full year course. I'm going to list it as Honors English 10 because he is going to be doing quite a bit of extra reading on top of what is already included in the literature book with the additional novel studies and projects. In the social studies category, my son is moving on to world history, and for that we're using Guest Hollow's Whirlwind World History, which is a little bit of a tongue twister to say. This is a really unique curriculum. We have loved Guest Hollow courses because it moves away from the kind of the boring model of here, read the textbook and take the test and things like that. Instead, they really immerse you and your student in the subject that they're studying in lots of different ways, through living books, through videos, through movies, through hands-on activities, craft projects, food projects, I mean, all different kinds of things. And their world history program is no different. So no, you don't actually get like a physical textbook sent to you. You get a series of PDF downloads and then access to their online textbook. Their online textbooks are amazing. I mean, it has reading, it has fabulous pictures, there are embedded videos, maps, all kinds of things to, again, just kind of help your student better retain the information that it's giving. On top of that, you are provided with what's called the teacher schedule, which gives a really detailed book list telling you the different books that will be recommended throughout the course of the curriculum. They rank them so you know which books are most important. They'll tell you which weeks they're used. So you could purchase books outright. If you're like me, I'm a book hoarder. I will buy all of the books just because I want an excuse to add another bookcase in my house. But you could rent books from the library. You could get them used. You could kind of pare it down. I mean, totally up to you how you want to do it. And then it will also give you like a supply list. So it'll tell you right off the bat, if you're going to do X activities, here's the things that you're going to need to do. And then the schedule itself, I'll just show like a quick clip here. So just to show you a quick example of what the schedule looks like, for example, here, week 9, we're looking at ancient civilizations and the rise of empires. It's got links here showing us what the different reading assignments are on the online textbook from the different nonfiction and fiction books, what it is we're reading. And I really like how they include stuff like this. You'll see like we're reading Outcast and it says click here for a free teacher's guide. So if you wanted to use some of these books and pull them into your literature studies, you could use that at no cost to you. It talks about timeline entries. I'll show you the timeline bit in a second. Look at all these extra activities though, and we won't do all of them, but each week we might make different choices on what we want to do. There's a link to a craft, a pop-up Pompeii villa. There is a recipe making ancient Roman Parthian chicken. There's PDF printouts you can go to, and these are all just different free resources you can click right on here on the PDF document. It takes us right to it. You could even include music. And then look at all of these different videos that they have found for us. So these are mostly YouTube videos or TED Ed videos. Again, you can click right here on these links. It takes you right to the video. There's even recommendations for full-length videos and movies. So obviously there's more on the schedule that we could do in a week, but it is meant to be kind of like a buffet where you kind of pick and choose which options you want to do and we can change it up from week to week. One week we might decide we're going to do recipes. One week we might do a craft project. One week we might decide we're going to watch one of the full-length videos. They do help guide you, though, as far as like which things they feel are kind of most important to do in order to, get the most out of the curriculum. But it's just been a lot of fun using their other programs. So I think this will be great. The other thing that you get with the purchase is a PDF download of the student workbook. Now, I haven't printed mine off yet, but I'll do exactly what I did for the last one. I will print it off and then I will spiral bind it and have my son do it. Each page of the workbook tells you which week on the schedule it correlates with, and then it has the questions kind of identified as which reading assignment they come from. So you can easily see like, hey, this page of questions comes from this part of the online textbook, or they come from this book that was assigned reading, or this reference book, or this website. So it's really easy for him to figure out where it is he needs to go to find the information for the workbook. It also includes map work pages, so some labeling and identification of where things occurred, which I think is great. They even have these lined pages kind of interspaced throughout the student workbook. So if I wanted to assign like a short essay or a paragraph, or have him do some sort of other writing assignment, I could put that in there as well. So that's just a really nice thing. Another thing that they include is called the timeline project. So this is, again, another PDF download that you get, and the timeline is like a printout. So the pages look something like this, which, I mean, you're like, wow, that's like really plain, right? Well, you print them out, and it goes from, thousands of years BC to modern day. Hole punch them or spiral bind it, however you want to do it, put them in a binder. And then each week it'll talk about the things that you're supposed to mark on your timeline. So that is another PDF of images. So here's just an example of one of the pages of images. They said that they made it a separate document because they had parents requesting it in order to print these out on sticker paper. And I was like, that is brilliant. And I'm totally going to do that. So I'm going to print out the timeline images on sticker paper. So that way he can just peel and stick them right onto the timeline pages. So they bring about different things that they're studying, right? So Plato, 428 to 347 BC. So when that's noted in the schedule, he'd peel that one off. He'd put it in the correct spot on the timeline. There are blank ones included as well. So if you wanted to write in other events that you learn about, you can kind of create your own stickers. There are ones that go along with like the different books that you're reading, when were they written or when did they take place, that kind of thing. I just think that this will be a really cool like little add-on for him to be able to kind of quickly see like all of the different things and when did they happen in relationship to one another. So on his transcript, I will put this down as a 1 credit full year course. We'll call it World History. Now on to some elective courses. My son has expressed interest in learning more about how to just live a healthier lifestyle or kind of be at the peak of his health. And we've done like a general health course. We did a high school level health course back in 8th grade, but I think he's more interested in like what's the optimal nutrition for him at his age and how does he best achieve his fitness goals at his age, which I think is great. I mean, he is an athlete, and as a nurse who used to work orthopedics, I can tell you that, we saw so many sports injuries from teenagers who weren't adequately preparing themselves, strength and stretching wise and things like that for the sports they were doing, or they get overuse injuries. So I think this is a great thing to do. So I decided to kind of design my own course, and we're going to call this Nutrition and Fitness. That's what I'm going to name it on the transcript. At this point, I think it's just going to be a half-year course, so a half-credit course, but we'll see. If he decides he'd like to dive into these subjects even further, I could try to find additional resources and extend it out, but we're just going to try for half the year for now. So one of the things I found was this course called Nutrition Science. It's got 6 parts of workbook, so there's no separate textbook or anything like that. It covers, the balanced diet, vitamins and minerals, vegetables, fruit, weight control, protein, whole grain, starches and sweets, water, fat, and fiber. So for each of the books, there are little short reading assignments. There are project ideas, recipe ideas, so readings and activities. There are built-in quizzes. At the very back of the book, there's a pre-test before you do each workbook, which I think is cool to get an idea on like what it is that you already know before you dive into it. And then you can kind of go back and see what it is you learned. They even have like little test pages that are included in here. So each of these would only take, a few weeks to go through. So we could easily get through all 6 of the workbooks in 18 weeks. And then there are 2 answer keys included in this as well for me to go through and grade it. But I thought this might be just a nice way for him to get a little more in-depth information on those different aspects of nutrition. So that will kind of cover the nutrition side of things. And then if he wants to do the projects, totally can. The other half of that is the fitness side. So we do have a Y membership just at our local YMCA. And they do offer trainers and courses and things like that. So we are going to set him up to actually get a chance to meet with one of the trainers, talk about the sports he does and his fitness goals, and see what they recommend as far as a program for him to follow. So he does already go to the Y a couple of days a week, but usually it's just to run or play basketball, or he'll lift weights kind of randomly. But we wanted to get him on a little more of a kind of a program. Here's the correct way to use the weight equipment. Here's the correct starting weights you should be doing at your age and at your strength, at your strength level, and having somebody just kind of guide him through that over the course of a couple of weeks. So 1, he does things properly. 2, he avoids injury. And 3, he can see how working different parts of the body can improve your overall health and wellness. So that is going to be kind of the fitness side of his course there. And we'll just kind of track, make sure that he's, going on those different days of the week, that he's following the things that the trainer is telling him to do. Is there a little bit of a cost to using the personal trainer? Yes. I don't expect us to do that for the entire semester, more so for just the first couple of weeks, or maybe after that, kind of spacing it out like a monthly check-in with the trainer to get like updated ideas on what it is he should be doing. And, again, ensuring that he's doing things properly and in a way that avoids injury. And his last elective course also has to do with food, because he's just a food obsessed kid. He loves to be in the kitchen, cooking and baking and grilling and trying different things. So we are going to be doing Guest Hollow's chemistry in the kitchen course. I thought it would be a good idea to do that this year because he is taking chemistry. So he's learning all of the concepts in depth, like with the math. The Guest Hollow chemistry in the kitchen course is more of kind of like a practical application of chemistry, seeing how those concepts in chemistry kind of play out in food reactions. So, I wanted him to have a traditional chemistry course, like with including the math and stuff, but I also wanted him to be able to kind of have some fun with it. And that's where I thought chemistry in the kitchen would be great. Now on his transcript, it's going to be a full year course, but we're going to list it as food science. And you might notice if you watched my daughter's video that she's doing this course as well, but they're not going to do it like together. They're each going to do the readings on their own, watch the videos on their own, and then I'll let them kind of pick, one of them do one recipe that's suggested for the week, one does the other. So they both get an opportunity to be in the kitchen. There's such a thing as too many cooks in the kitchen. So I didn't want them like working together on recipes because, I don't know, I think they just butt heads. They'd have more fun being able to have their own cook time in the kitchen. So it does work very similar to courses like the Whirlwind World History, where I get a schedule download. There is a student workbook that I can print off and spiral bind. There is a book list that tells me all of the different books that are recommended for the course, links to videos and activities and recipes and all of those great things. So we're just really excited to do it. I showed this in my daughter's video, but just so you can see, I do have a couple of the books on hand already. Things like Culinary Reactions, The Everyday Cooking of Chemistry, What Einstein Told His Cook, and Dr. Joe and What You Didn't Know. Just some really fun books. I think it's just going to be a blast doing this course with him and his sister this year. And those are my curriculum choices for my son's 10th grade year. I will be sure to link all of this down below in the description box for you, along with Kathy Duffy reviews, because I do encourage you to do your own research before making any purchases. Additionally, I will put a link to my full curriculum choices playlist so you can see what we have done in past years and what I'm also doing with my older student next year. Don't forget that on Friday, I'll have one more video coming out related to curriculum. That will be for the high school electives that we do as a group, so with both of my students together. If you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button down below so you can continue to follow along with our homeschooling through high school journey. Thanks so much for joining me today, everybody. Happy homeschooling.